Chapter 4005. A very thick death chi. Dmo Xian frowned slightly as he looked at the gloomy black chi from afar. Death chi? Yi Qing Luo was stunned. Indeed, it looked like death chi. Because just by looking at it, she felt an oppressive feeling in her heart. As though it could easily draw out the most painful and despairing memories in one's heart. Filled with despair and loneliness, the aura of death. If it's death chi, why? This forest is so lush? Totally unaffected by the death chi? Generally speaking, if it was a place where the death chi lingered, the more intense and dense the death chi, in the radius of 1,000 miles, there wouldn't be any signs of life. Not to mention it was lush with foliage and trees. Not only this forest is unaffected, that mountain range over there, which is surrounded by the death chi, is also lush with foliage. This was Dmo Xian's first time seeing such a situation. The place where the death chi lingered. A stretch of green. The foliage was so lush that it totally didn't look like it was surrounded by the death chi. The impostor pulled Mu Qilan into that mountain. Will she be affected by the death chi? Yi Qing Luo raised her head and looked at the sky, which was surrounded by the death chi and had darkened. If a person was tainted by the death chi, he wouldn't be far from death. Not to mention such a thick death chi. That person intentionally lured us into that mountain. Dmo Xian's eyes narrowed slightly as the expression on his face turned solemn. What you mean is, that mountain has a trap? Yi Qing Luo asked. Dmo Xian nodded. Follow me closely. He knew that if he asked Yi Qing Luo to leave, Yi Qing Luo would not agree to it. It was also impossible for her to let him enter the deep mountain alone. Most importantly, before knowing the other party's motive, he was unable to be assured to leave Yi Qing Luo alone. The two of them exchanged glances as their hands clenched tightly as they entered the West Cliff Mountain together. 7 turns and 8 turns. The two of them quickly reached the deepest part of the West Cliff Mountain. Standing at the foot of the deep mountain range, Yi Qing Luo felt that thick black yin chi coming towards her. As though it had opened its huge mouth. As though it was going to swallow her. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted slightly. Dmo Xian's long arm pulled her into his embrace as his tall and broad body blocked off all the layers of lingering death chi. Ah Xian. Yi Qing Luo looked at the numerous yin chi, crashing onto Dmo Xian's back. Her little hands immediately clutched his sleeves tightly. These don't affect me at all. Dmo Xian replied nonchalantly. Yi Qing Luo looked at Dmo Xian's expression worriedly, and after ascertaining that there wasn't any change in his expression, she then set her heart at ease. She buried her head in his embrace. The aura of death can even attack people. Then, how can I enter this mountain? Don't you still have me? Dmo Xian held her little hand. Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips. This place is obviously very dangerous. If you keep on protecting me like this, it will only cause both of us to fall into danger. She did not want to be a burden to Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian chuckled and squeezed her little hand. Look. Yi Qing Luo looked at their interlocked hands in puzzlement. He saw, a stream of purple and red lights suddenly appeared in their hands. The rays of light intertwined, one after another. Tightly, it encircled Yi Qing Luo entirely. That was the rays from the profound phoenix ring and profound dragon ring. Yi Qing Luo stared in astonishment at the intertwining rays from the two rings. Chapter 4006. This is. Yi Qing Luo looked at the two rings in astonishment as they burst forth with radiance. Dmo Xian laughed lightly. When the profound dragon ring and profound phoenix ring are worn by two lovers who have the same thoughts, when combined together, they will be able to unleash the greatest power of the profound dragon ring and profound phoenix ring. His slender fingers tapped Yi Qing Luo's profound phoenix ring. This is just one of the small functions of this pair of ancient love rings. Immediately after, he suppressed his voice as he teased, if you want to activate more functions of the love rings, Lil Luo, Will have to research more with me on this pair of love rings. It was obviously a serious sentence. It came out from a man's mouth. But it seemed to be filled with another layer of meaning. Yiqing Luo's cheeks inexplicably blushed. Dmo Xian's gaze on her deepened. Yiqing Luo immediately lowered her head as she looked at her hands, which were intertwined with Dmo Xian's. The radiance reflected by the dragon phoenix love ring wrapped her up like a cocoon, airtight. Dmo Xian then tentatively let go of her. Death Qi surged wildly from all directions, crashing over. But, when it touched her, she was instantly repelled. Two streams of light formed a protective cover, trapping Yiqing Luo firmly within. It can even have such a function. It was simply a protective talisman. With this protective cover, these Death Qi had no effect on her at all. After confirming her safety, the two of them stepped into the mountain range. West Cliff Mountain was called as a mountain, naturally not because of that stretch of forest which the citizens of the Earth realm had spread, was famous, but because of the mountain range in the depths of the forest, which was the mountain peak which Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian were stepping into now. A place where Death Qi lingered. The surroundings were lush with foliage. Thick and strong trees, one after another, with no end in sight. On the ground was a large patch of branches and vines, with broken leaves covering the ground. If it wasn't for the floating Death Qi in the air, Yiqing Luo really felt that this place was filled with nature's atmosphere as a tourist spot. This totally incongruous feeling made Yiqing Luo's heart give birth to some cautiousness. She followed beside Dmo Xian in small steps as her little hand held his big palm tightly. That impostor led them here. Could it be that he himself could avoid the Death Qi here? He also had Mu Qilan with him. Their footsteps were light and slow. Every step and every movement was a test. They went all the way until they were about halfway up the mountain. Yiqing Luo vaguely detected a trace of peculiarity. Before he could tell Dmo Xian, his waist suddenly tightened. Dmo Xian had already hugged her tightly, both feet off the ground. She fell into Dmo Xian's arms. Dmo Xian's figure moved and both of them landed steadily on the luxuriant tree trunk. The dense foliage completely concealed their figures. Yiqing Luo nestled in Dmo Xian's arms. The purplish-red light swirling around his body shrank in an instant. It formed a thin protective barrier. It was extremely inconspicuous, but it still protected her from being corroded by the Death Qi. What are you trying to do? A panting, obviously exhausted voice questioned someone. However, that person clearly had no intention of replying. His voice became even angrier. You imposter! What the hell is this place? Why is my body becoming weirder and weirder, my strength? What are you trying to do to me? Shut up. The cold and deep voice was 90% similar to Dmo Xian's. Yiqing Luo was slightly stunned. It was that impostor and Mu Qilan. Chapter 4007. Through the lush leaves, Yiqing Luo saw a tall figure walking out not too far away. His purple robe looked even more slender through the gaps between the leaves. Bearing the exact same face as Dmo Xian, his face was filled with impatience and indifference. Wasn't that the person who pretended to be Dmo Xian? Next to the impostor, Roland. It was Mu Qilan, whose clothes were disheveled and who was in a sorry state. At this moment, he was kneeling on the ground. His clothes and hair were covered in mud and withered leaves. Mu Qilan gasped for air, one of her hands still gripping tightly onto the impostor's trousers. Her face was pale, and there was pain hidden between her brows. This place makes me very uncomfortable. I can't stay here any longer. Send me out, send me out. The impostor raised her leg without hesitation and kicked her to the side. Mu Qilan rolled a few times on the ground. She was in so much pain that her petite body was curled up and trembling uncontrollably. The aura of death in the surroundings continued to surge towards her. She could almost feel the aura of death approaching. Mu Qilan's eyes were bloodshot. Gnashing her teeth, she glared at the impostor and said, "If I die, no one will be able to prove that you are the real Lord Sovereign. Didn't you want to impersonate Dizun? Without me, you wouldn't have been able to impersonate me successfully." The impostor raised her shimmering peach blossom eyes and raised her thin lips into a sarcastic smile. "I am the venerable emperor. Do I need your proof? Even without you, I still succeeded, didn't I? At the very least, the virgin body of the mysterious fairy of Shadowless City has been given to me, hasn't it?" His mocking tone and those humiliating words. It made Mu Qilan even angrier. His entire face was contorted. His eyes bulged as if they were about to pop out of his eye sockets. Giving her virginity to an impostor. It was the stupidest decision she had ever made in her life. Furthermore, the impostor twitched the corner of her mouth in a mocking manner. The bait has been cast. Pretending to be venerable sovereign is no longer necessary. When saying this sentence, from Yiqing Luo's angle, he could clearly see a flash of coldness in the impostor's eyes. It seemed that he didn't look like he was impersonating Dmo Xian at all. What's more, he was disgusted by such impersonations. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes slightly, as she pondered deeply for a moment, as she exchanged glances with Dmo Xian. In the other party's eyes, she was completely sure that this impostor's purpose was indeed to lure them into this dead mountain. The bait was his fake identity. Impersonating the overlord right under Dmo Xian's nose. No matter what, it would attract Dmo Xian and her to investigate it personally. This was the goal of the impostor. Thinking of this, Yiqing Luo's expression sunk even deeper. Down below, Mu Qilan shuddered when she heard the impostor's words. What do you mean by that? Your goal, isn't it to impersonate the overlord and replace him? Mu Qilan thought. The person in front of him was one of the substitutes that the overlord had specially trained. Because he wanted to become the master. Only then would they rise up to resist. Otherwise, how could there be such similar people in the world? Not only did he deceive her, he had also deceived the people of the major forces. Even those who had seen this impostor wouldn't be able to say for sure that he was an impostor, right? The two of them were so similar. The impostor's goal wasn't to completely replace Dmo Xian. Chapter 4008. Just a mere overlord, what's there for me to spend so much effort to impersonate? Why must I impersonate him to be able to rule the world? As the impostor said that, the expression on her face was slightly distorted. Why did Yiqing Luo felt that this impostor was agitated by that sentence she said earlier? How shameful must you be to use someone else's identity to exist? So concerned about her words? Whereas for Mu Qilan's side, she only felt that the impostor was putting on a brave front. The overlord's identity was the most respectable person in the world. If she could replace the overlord, their days would undergo an earth-shattering change. Anyway, I don't need you anymore. A murderous intent flashed past the impostor's eyes. Her arm was raised. The profound ray turned into a sharp blade as it shot towards Mu Qilan. Mu Qilan's face turned pale as her heart suddenly tightened. Her body speedily rolled sideways. But that sharp blade seemed to have eyes as it made a turn and chased up to her once again. Mu Qilan's sideways roll earlier. She had already exhausted all the energy in her body. The death chi corroded her body and mind. It made her entire body felt as though it was in an ice cellar. She couldn't avoid it. Mu Qilan shut her eyes in despair. The aura of death enveloped her entire body. Bam! A deafening explosion resounded as the profound light rippled in the air, creating ripples in the aftermath. That explosion reverberated in Mu Qilan's ears, reverberating with waves of echoes. But there was no intense pain and agony as she imagined. What was going on? Mu Qilan slowly opened her eyes. What entered her eyes was a fiery red figure. Her skirt fluttered like a burning flame, her fine black hair fluttered without any wind. And that figure was standing right in front of her, helping her to block the imposter's attack. That petite figure was obviously surrounded by the surrounding death chi and profound waves, looking frail and weak. But she stood there steadily, exuding boundless coquettish charm. Just a back view. Mu Qilan recognized the person in front of her, Yi Qing Luo. That Yi Qing Luo whom she couldn't wait to hack into pieces. It was actually Yi Qing Luo? Why did Yi Qing Luo save her? Mu Qilan stared blankly at Yi Qing Luo's departing figure as her emotions surged, unable to believe her own eyes. But in front of him, the young lady standing was indeed Yi Qing Luo. Apparently, the impostor was stunned by Yi Qing Luo. By right, Yi Qing Luo should hate Mu Qilan. Why did he save Mu Qilan? Yi Qing Luo's fingertips moved and the glower flame fan unfolded into a blazing arc. She pressed her pink lips together and smiled faintly. This person can't die yet. She did not care about Mu Qilan's life or death. But now, because of the matter of the real and fake DMO Xian, everyone was questioning DMO Xian's identity. If Mu Qilan were to die at this moment, it would only make people think that he was trying to silence them. Even if DMO Xian were to produce any evidence to prove that he was the real DMO Xian, perhaps there would also be people who had doubts. Whereas for someone like DMO Xian, he wouldn't care about what others thought. Even if he was suspected, it didn't matter. But Yi Qing Luo didn't wish for DMO Xian's reputation to be ruined because of this small matter. The source of the real and fake DMO Xian was Mu Qilan and this impostor. So Mu Qilan couldn't die. The impostor couldn't die either. As long as she was still breathing. Chapter 4009. Yi Qing Luo's brows rose as her charming eyes glowed with a gloomy red glow. It was just a glance. Mu Qilan felt as if she had fallen into a bottomless quagmire. She struggled in it. But he had sunk into the quagmire. Suffocation, fear, and despair filled her body and mind. His pupils dilated little by little. Her eyes were filled with shock, and her entire body was trembling. Yi Qing Luo saw Mu Qilan's look and couldn't help but curled her lips into a smile, asking me for help. Are you serious? Falling into my hands won't necessarily be easier than following him. Cold words. It awakened Mu Qilan's consciousness. She pressed her hand against her neck. He was gasping for air. The feeling of almost drowning was too real. It was so real that Mu Qilan didn't even want to think about it. She shrank back as her eyes stared deadly at Yi Qing Luo, staring at that carefree and indifferent face which was filled with ridicule. The backbone in her bones told her not to lower her head. But the weakness of the body and the fear of the impostor. She had no choice but to lower her head. Please, save me. A voice as soft as the buzz of a mosquito came out of Mu Qilan's mouth. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows rose as she squinted at Mu Qilan with a smile which didn't look like a smile. With a flick of his finger, a pill fell beside Mu Qilan's feet. Eat it, although it's a little painful, but at least it can keep you awake. Yi Qing Luo deliberately gave a naughty smile. Only by staying awake can you prevent the death chi from entering your body. Mu Qilan stared at the pills that were stained with mud and her own blood, not daring to reach out her hand to take them. Although she had begged Yi Qing Luo for help. But he was very clear in his heart. Yi Qing Luo was not a good person at all. There was no way he really wanted to save her. This pill was very likely to be the most poisonous poison. After Yi Qing Luo threw the pill to her, she didn't bother about Mu Qilan anymore. Instead, he raised his head and looked smilingly at the man who looked exactly like DMO Xian. You tried so many ways to lure me over, and now that I'm here, shouldn't you make your motive clear? The impostor's deep eyes stared at Yi Qing Luo without blinking. Hearing Yi Qing Luo's words, his expression sunk slightly. You know about it? If you knew, why did you still come in? Yi Qing Luo raised her brows. Why did this person's tone sound like he was blaming her? She clearly knew that this mountain was dangerous, yet she still wanted to take the risk. Wasn't that his goal? If she didn't enter this mountain, didn't that mean that he had failed his mission? Yiqing Luo didn't know what this impostor was trying to do. Perhaps he realized that his reaction was a little off. The impostor's face sank and she clenched her fists. Since you're already here, then, don't even think about leaving. He glanced around and asked, where is the venerable sovereign? He doesn't seem like someone who would let you enter a dangerous place alone. As soon as he finished speaking, a hurricane appeared. Profound ripples surged violently like tidewater, pouring out in torrents. In that instant, the black yin qi in the area dissipated. Even the air was twisted by this hurricane. A purple figure flashed past his eyes. A tyrannical aura gushed out in all directions. Bang! A powerful force slammed into the impostor's chest. The impostor felt an intense pain in her body and mind. His internal organs felt as though they were shattered. He fell onto the ground, his body was in so much pain that he couldn't move. Turning his head slightly, he saw a slender figure standing beside Yiqing Luo. Not knowing when, a slender figure had appeared. Dmo Xian. Chapter 40:10. The impostor clutched his chest as his pupils widened as he stared at Dmo Xian with hatred. The jealousy and hatred in his eyes were obvious. Meeting the impostor's jealous and hateful eyes, Dmo Xian raised his brows slightly as his thin lips curled into a smile which didn't look like a smile. His peach blossom eyes squinted. No wonder you're this lord's impostor, you understand me quite well. His tone was as light as the wind. There wasn't any fluctuation in his emotions. Immediately after, he hooked his arm around Yiqing Luo's waist as he intimately kissed the young lady's forehead. His smile deepened. This lord indeed will not bear to let Lil Luo, take the risk alone. The impostor's pupils suddenly contracted. His eyes stared intently as they embraced intimately. The impostor fell onto the ground. And Dmo Xian just stood there, looking down at him from above. That kind of feeling was really annoying. Couldn't wait to destroy his arrogance, his everything. The impostor's hands clutched his robe tightly in front of his chest. Surging hatred and anger surged in his chest. Suddenly, the impostor's palms slammed onto the ground. A loud explosion was heard. The impostor had already turned into a purple afterimage as he flipped himself up from the ground. In a split second, the surrounding death qi immediately surged towards him as it quickly gathered. In just a moment, the impostor's body was surrounded by a terrifying black death qi. Layers and layers of death qi filled the air, as though it was going to swallow everything around it. The impostor's eyes were icy cold as his hands flipped and clenched his palms tightly as a terrifying profound ray was shot out, mixed with the lingering death qi. The palm wind swept across the dark sky as it charged towards Dmo Xian. Bam! Another explosion was heard. The surrounding air was vibrating. The air was filled with dense black death qi. Looking at the profound ray which was intertwined with the death qi, Yiqing Luo's brows creased slightly. The moment the palm wind neared, her feet moved slightly. At the same time, Dmo Xian's sleeves fluttered as he swept away the purple flowing clouds. Vast and majestic profound energy burst forth. It instantly formed a hurricane. The hurricane and the palm wind collided. One after another, the lush trees were uprooted and knocked against each other. Even the ground had large cracks on it. Rumble. With the sound of mountains collapsing. The two forces dissipated at the same time. Everything around him had been reduced to ruins. Qi waves surged and smoke billowed. Dmo Xian slowly withdrew his hand, his expression was calm, without a hint of strain. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo pounced towards him, her hands naturally hugging his waist. On the man's body, there was a hint of a cold aura. Dmo Xian rubbed her head as his thin lips curled up slightly. I'm fine, but you have to be careful. It's indeed as you've guessed, the death qi here can become that impostor's energy. As soon as he discovered the impostor and Mu Qilan, Yiqing Luo saw that the impostor wasn't affected by the death qi at all. Coupled with what Dmo Xian had said earlier, the impostor was intentionally luring them. Yiqing Luo roughly guessed it. The aura of death here was indirectly related to the impostor. This was a test. Sure enough. This made Yiqing Luo recall a long time ago. In South Continent, the dark forces had done the same thing. The aura of death here was absolutely not simple. There was a possibility. It was related to the Nether Palace. This thought made Yiqing Luo's eyelids droop slightly. If it was related to the Nether Palace, then, the impostor in front of her. Chapter 40:11. Through the spiraling smoke. Yiqing Luo could vaguely see the impostor behind the smoke, standing shakily in midair. Apparently, the impostor no longer had the energy to float in midair. After struggling for a while, he finally gave up and landed on the ground. After that, he raised his head and shot a sharp gaze towards Dmo Xian. Even though he was already at a disadvantage, his imposing manner had not diminished at all. A strong aura burst out from his entire body, turning into a sharp blade, twisting around Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian only lifted his eyelids. His eyes flickered slightly. A gust of hurricane appeared around him. The hurricane swept up, blowing away the surrounding smoke. The two forces collided once again. Following the collision of the two forces, the surrounding death qi, wave after wave, surged towards the impostor who was half kneeling on the ground. Following the thickening of the death qi, little by little, the impostor stood up straight. Both hands clenched into fists, raising them up high. An earth-shattering roar came from his mouth. The death qi surged faster and faster. His entire body was almost submerged in it. The boundless aura of death caused the black hair on the impostor's shoulders to dance wildly. His sleeves fluttered, his hazy face revealed some malevolence. The impostor at this moment. Where was the slightest bit of Dmo Xian's temperament? The entire person was like a devil who had turned into a demon, malevolent and terrifying. Not knowing why, when she saw this heart-wrenching, raging impostor, Yiqing Luo felt that there was something strangely familiar about this person. As though she had seen him somewhere before. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly. Looking at the both of them not making any moves, merely using their thoughts to release their profound energy to battle. Just as she was about to open her mouth. Just at this moment, Dmo Xian suddenly retracted his profound energy. His sleeves moved. The surging airwaves returned to tranquility. He grabbed Yiqing Luo's slender waist and retreated out of the impostor's attack range. Dmo Xian's sudden abandonment of attack made the impostor slightly stunned. The deathly aura around him also froze in the air. Under the influence of the death qi, the impostor's face turned pale. Dmo Xian, what do you mean by this? Looking down on him? At the most critical juncture, he retracted all of his battle intent. He broke away from the battle. What was this? Dmo Xian looked at the impostor indifferently as his peach blossom eyes narrowed slightly. If you continue to absorb the death qi, I'm afraid you'll really become a dead person. The impostor was stunned. The coldness in his body, eroded by the aura of death, made him feel like he was in an ice house. Indeed, it was getting harder and harder for him to sense the existence of his aura. However, these words, coming out from Dmo Xian's mouth. How ironic. The impostor snickered. The deathly aura on her body surged uneasily. What? Does the Overlord feel sorry for an impostor like me and doesn't want me to die? Dmo Xian glanced at him indifferently. Nothing answered his desire. He merely moved his fingertips expressionlessly. The purple profound light was as dazzling as a star. When the profound light landed on the impostor's body, little by little, the layers of deathly aura were dispelled. When the death qi dispersed from his body, the impostor lost all of his supporting strength. His body swayed as he half knelt on the ground. He forced himself to hold on, to maintain his body, and completely collapsed. You. What do you mean? The imposter's face twitched as anger surged. If Dmo Xian killed him directly, he might feel better in his heart. But Dmo Xian actually stopped midway. Chapter 40:12. Facing the imposter's venomous gaze, which was filled with death aura, Dmo Xian was expressionless as he replied indifferently, "I don't want to kill you anymore." 5 indifferent words, calm and icy cold. He said it in such a casual manner. It was as if she had suddenly lost interest in this toy of hers. The imposter's heart constricted as his gaze turned chilly. "Dmo Xian, I don't need your pity." Pity? Dmo Xian scoffed as though he had heard a joke. The imposter's pupils contracted slightly. That's right, would the overlord pity him? Then why? Would Dmo Xian show mercy? Or that kind of indifferent attitude? Show mercy? Apparently, Dmo Xian didn't intend to give him an answer. Instead, he glanced sideways and looked at the young lady beside him as he spoke in a warm voice, "Let's leave this place first." This sudden development made Yiqing Luo dumbstruck. She didn't understand why Dmo Xian suddenly let the imposter off. Shouldn't he catch the imposter and expose his identity? Then force out the ultimate motive? But since Dmo Xian had chosen to do this, naturally he had his reasons. Yiqing Luo didn't probe further as she nodded her head towards Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian. The imposter saw that the both of them were intending to leave, and a sense of humiliation arose from the bottom of his heart. His face flushed red, and that face, which was exactly the same as Dmo Xian's, twisted. "If you want to leave this place, you have to ask for my permission first." As the imposter said that, he pounced towards Dmo Xian. The surrounding condensed black death aura once again surged over. But just as the imposter was about to get close to Dmo Xian, the man raised his head slightly. A pair of eyes that were as cold as frost slowly landed on his body. Inexplicably, it made the imposter's actions stiffen on the spot. That ice-cold gaze seemed to be able to freeze the surrounding air. The imposter's face trembled as he wanted to speak. But when the words reached the tip of his tongue, he couldn't spit them out. That gaze stared at him for a long time. The man's thin lips moved slightly. He spat out a cold word, "This time, take it as me returning you a favor. If you continue to pester me, don't force me to take off your mask in front of little Luo Air." The imposter's eyelashes fluttered, and her pupils dilated. His body stiffened, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. However, he did not move again. It was as if he was rooted to the spot. Until Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian left his line of sight, he didn't move at all. The aura of death was still lingering around. More and more packages came one after another. But he couldn't get close to the imposter. Not far away, a painful and trembling voice rang out, Lord Dizun, Lady D, don't leave me, don't leave me." Mu Qilan struggled to get up from the ground. While rushing towards the direction where Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo had left. At the same time, she looked at the imposter cautiously. Until he ran far away. The imposter remained motionless in her original position. She heaved a sigh of relief and immediately chased after Yiqing Luo's footsteps. Under Dmo Xian's lead, the two of them retraced their steps. Earlier, the collision between Dmo Xian and the imposter. The radius of 100 miles was in ruins. The ground was filled with broken thick tree branches. The ground was like a spider web, densely packed with fine cracks. Chapter 40:13. If they didn't know each other. Thus, he would not bring up the topic of returning the favor. Favor? Who could make Dmo Xian owe a debt of gratitude? Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes in puzzlement and asked again, "That person, do I know him too?" Dmo Xian had mentioned her just now. It seemed that he did not intend to tell her the identity of that person. Dmo Xian lowered his eyes and met the young lady's puzzled eyes as his lips curled upwards. "Lil Luo, is so smart, why not make a guess? Yi Qing Luo puffed up her cheeks and used her head to knock against his arm. You already know the answer, isn't it better to tell me directly? Why do I have to rack my brain? Dmo Xian smiled without saying a word. His eyes were warm and doting. Mu Qilan, who was hot on his heels, had just caught up to him when she saw this scene. Obviously, in front of others, Di Zun was cold, noble, and had a majestic aura that no one dared to approach. But in front of Yi Qing Luo, he had shed all his ruthlessness. The aura around him was gentle and warm. Especially when he looked at Yi Qing Luo's gaze, that kind of sincerity and pampering, totally without a sliver of space for others to intervene. Mu Qilan's heart trembled fiercely. At this moment, he finally understood, why was it that from the start till the end, no matter how she acted or how she confidently said that she had an affair with the Overlord, Yi Qing Luo had never believed it. The trust between the Overlord and Yi Qing Luo was indestructible. Basically, no one could destroy it. In Mu Qilan's heart, there was a sense of disappointment and frustration. She was unwilling and jealous, but there was nothing she could do. At this moment, suddenly, Mu Qilan saw something. Her pupils constricted, and she cried out sharply, "Watch out behind you!" It was an instinctive reaction. After she yelled out this sentence, his eyes were filled with endless fear. He subconsciously turned around and ran. Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian were walking. Suddenly, he heard Mu Qilan's terrified cry. He turned his head, vines that filled the sky came crashing down, covering the sky and covering the earth. Yi Qing Luo's eyes sunk as she swiftly drew out the glower flame fan and moved her 5 fingers. The blazing red light slashed down. Dmo Xian swept his sleeves. It sliced the twisting vines in front of it into pieces. But this has no practical effect. In the next instant, more vines swarmed over, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. The vines seemed to have their own consciousness. One after another, they twisted around him. What is this? In Yi Qing Luo's mind, an image of the man-eating plant emerged. These vines, could it be that they wanted to entangle her and Dmo Xian together and then eat them up? It was no wonder that she had a strange feeling when she first entered the mountain. However, he didn't think too deeply about what was strange about it. Only now did he realize it, there were too many vines on this mountain. Such verdant, long, and messy vines should not have appeared in the mountain surrounded by the aura of death. Could it be that this was the real motive of the impostor luring her and Dmo Xian into the mountains? Ah! Help! Help! Suddenly, a shrill scream could be heard. When Mu Qilan was escaping, how could her speed be faster than these vines? In the blink of an eye, a few vines wrapped around his legs. Mu Qilan fell to the ground, being dragged back by the vines. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. This Mu Qilan, temporarily couldn't die. Not to mention that she needed Mu Qilan to verify that Dmo Xian wasn't an impostor. Chapter 40:14. Otherwise, those vines would have already succeeded in getting him. After all, these vines were lifeless. She really didn't notice the approach of the vines at all. Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian exchanged glances. The two of them leaped at the same time. Yi Qing Luo raised the glower flame fan in her hands as she speedily cut off the vines which were entangled around Mu Qilan's leg. Dmo Xian's sleeves fluttered slightly as an invisible air wave spread out, forcing back the vines that were rushing towards the young lady and Mu Qilan. Mu Qilan, grab me! Yi Qing Luo landed beside Mu Qilan and was just about to stretch out her hand to grab Mu Qilan. As soon as Mu Qilan regained her freedom, she cried out in fear, "Lord Di Zun!" Immediately after, he knocked Yi Qing Luo away and pounced towards Dmo Xian. Mu Qilan's face was extremely pale, her face filled with fear and astonishment. In her eyes, she totally didn't notice Yi Qing Luo who was trying to save her. This was Mu Qilan's instinctive reaction. She just wanted to jump into Di Zun's arms and seek comfort. However, but she ignored it. This Lord Dizun was the real Lord Dizun, not a fake. The instant she pounced over, she was stopped by Dmo Xian's profound energy, separating the distance between them. Master Dizun, Mu Qilan's spine immediately turned chilly as she looked at Dmo Xian in trepidation. She attempted to use a pitiful expression to soften Dmo Xian. But as soon as she raised her head, she met the man's sharp and cold eyes. It was like a sharp blade, ruthlessly cutting her. Mu Qilan's body began to tremble uncontrollably. Her words were stuck in her throat, and she couldn't even spit them out. Scram! Dmo Xian icily spat out the first sentence he had ever said to Mu Qilan. His sleeves fluttered, and air currents surged. Mu Qilan's body was abruptly sent flying, rolling behind the man. She cried out in pain. But Dmo Xian didn't even bother to take another look at her as he looked towards Yiqing Luo. When he saw Yiqing Luo, his pupils constricted as his voice was hoarse and filled with anxiety. Lil Luo, His words had just ended when his figure had already sped up, sprinting straight towards Yiqing Luo. Meanwhile, Yiqing Luo, who was pushed by Mu Qilan, her man's beauty was indeed very alluring. However, at this critical juncture, in Mu Qilan's eyes, she could only see beauty. Might as well let those vines drag Mu Qilan away. It was Mu Qilan's push, it was also Mu Qilan who threw herself into Dmo Xian's embrace. This gave the vines a chance to take advantage of it. Yiqing Luo only felt a chill under her feet. 2 coils of vines had penetrated the protective barrier on her body and wrapped around her feet without warning. Her heart trembled, and she quickly raised her glowing flame fan, wanting to cut off these vines. Countless vines wrapped around her hands. Yiqing Luo. What the hell? He didn't give her any time to react. Immediately after, his entire body felt light, and the scene before his eyes rapidly retreated. By the side of her ears, she could vaguely hear Dmo Xian's shocked roar, Lil Luo, And then, more and more vines coiled around his body. In front of him, it was pitch black, and he could no longer see anything. Damn it. Damn it. This Mu Qilan was really not an ordinary swindler. It was simply poisonous. Dmo Xian looked at the young lady who had already disappeared, and his entire body seemed to be placed in an ice cellar. His mind instantly went blank. Immediately after, a dark red blood color tainted his entire pupils. His entire body tensed up, as the black hair on his shoulders moved without any wind. A dangerous aura lingered around him. Chapter 40:15. Every single word was filled with a terrifying and horrifying aura of danger. His fingers clenched into a fist as his sleeves fluttered. Immediately after, he was about to chase up. Overlord. Don't leave me. How could Mu Qilan allow the Overlord to leave her behind like that as she immediately pounced forward, crying out miserably. She had seen with her own eyes how Yiqing Luo was entangled by numerous vines and then disappeared before her eyes. If it wasn't for the Overlord's protection, the next person to be taken away by the vines would be her. She had no idea what kind of monster those vines were. If she was taken away, she would definitely die. Mu Qilan didn't want to die. So she didn't care about Dmo Xian pushing her away time and time again, rejecting her approach. She pounced towards Dmo Xian. Get lost. Dmo Xian suddenly turned his head back as he flicked his sleeves. Raging profound energy surged out. It crashed onto Mu Qilan's chest, causing Mu Qilan to fly out. Her internal organs felt as though they were shattered. The bones in her body felt as though they had been displaced. The pain was indescribable. Her pupils reflected the man's ice-cold eyes, as if he had come from the azura of hell. Ruthless and sharp. If anything happens to Lil Luo, I will make Ling Long Palace, shadowless city. All perish together. Boom, following a loud sound. Mu Qilan felt her body flying backwards violently. With a bam, she crashed onto a big tree. This crash made Mu Qilan feel extreme pain. This kind of pain made her want to faint. Unfortunately, she had taken that medicinal pill which Yi Qing Luo had given her, and her consciousness had remained clear throughout. She could even clearly feel how the bones in her body were broken. Pain. So painful that she was about to die. But unfortunately, her consciousness was still so clear. She fell onto the ground, in so much pain that she couldn't even move. Suddenly, she heard a series of footsteps. She heard someone speaking. "There's someone here. There's someone over here. He seems to have flown out from that mountain. Quickly go over and take a look. Who is it? Let's see if we can find out anything from him." This voice. It sounded familiar. Mu Qilan tried her best to open her eyes. She saw a few figures walking towards her. At the very front were Pei Sheng and Gu Zixi. Behind him were Gue Wu, Zhou Mo, and Kitty Li. Gu Zixi was the first to crouch down. When she saw Mu Qilan's face clearly, she frowned slightly and said, "It's the Shadowless City's Empyrean Fairy." The Empyrean Fairy of Shadowless City was taken away by that fake overlord. Now, the Empyrean Fairy of Shadowless City was here. This also meant that they had not found the wrong place. "She smells like Big Sister." Kitty Li poked her head out from Zhou Mo's arms and stared at Mu Qilan. She must have come into contact with Big Sister just now. The few of them were following Kitty Li, following Yi Qing Luo's scent, chasing her all the way here. Gu Zixi looked at the mountain range in front of her that was shrouded in black mist. That means Luo and the Overlord are both inside. Kitty wants to go in and look for Big Sister. Kitty Li pursed her lips, her eyes turning red from anxiety. Everyone could see that. Once one got close to this mountain shrouded in black gas, it would cause great harm to one's body. Dmo Xian and Yi Qing Luo entered this mountain just like that. Wouldn't that be dangerous? Little wild cat, calm down. Zhou Mo hooked Kitty Li as he comforted her warmly. With the Overlord around, little Qing Luo will be fine. Chapter 40:16. Gu Zixi stood up and looked at Gue Wu. "Master, do you think, this mountain, can we go in?" Gue Wu raised his eyes slightly, looking at the lingering death qi in front of him, his eyes sunk slightly. After a moment, he slowly spat out 3 words, "No." "Why not?" "Sister has already gone in." Kitty Li's eyes widened, her cute little face was filled with displeasure. Gue Wu stared at the death qi, his dark eyes without any extra emotions. "If we go in, we will just be causing trouble for Yi Qing Luo and the Overlord." Kitty Li's pouted little mouth twitched, finally snorted out a heavy humph, and buried her head into Zhou Mo's arms. Only knew how to use her sister to threaten her. Zhou Mo rubbed the little head in his arms and looked at Gue Wu helplessly. "Ah Wu, is there any way?" "No." Gue Wu replied simply. Pei Sheng immediately panicked. We can only sit here and wait for Luo to come back?" Their gazes were all focused on Gue Wu. A slight frown appeared on Gue Wu's face, a slight fluctuation of emotions appearing on his calm and tranquil face. After a moment, his vision fell back to the sky covered by the black qi and said indifferently, "You guys wait here, I'll go in." "Ah Wu." Zhou Mo's smile sank as he was the first to express his opposition. Gue Wu calmly looked at the little person in his arms. "Are you sure you can go in with me to find someone?" Zhou Mo was stunned, his thin lips tightly pursed, his long and narrow phoenix eyes slightly narrowed. He couldn't go in. If he went in, the little wild cat would definitely follow by his side. The mountain in front of him seemed calm, but in fact, it was surging. Full of unknown dangers. Zhou Mo couldn't let Kitty Li take the risk. So, he couldn't enter the mountain. Gue Wu no longer looked at Zhou Mo. "I'll go in to take a look." After saying that, Gue Wu was about to enter the mountain. Don't go in." Mu Qilan, who was in pain and weak from blood loss, was extremely conscious and could hear their conversation. Her eyes flashed a touch of darkness. She forced herself to take a deep breath and continued, "It's terrible inside, it's all vines, man-eating, plants." As she spoke, she took a deep breath and coughed a few times from time to time. It was intermittent, but it was enough for them to understand. A plant that eats people? Vines? They looked at each other in dismay. Mu Qilan panted for a moment before forcing herself to continue, "That's right, we can't go in, we'll die, we'll die." Anyway, Yi Qing Luo had already been taken away by the vines. It was a narrow escape. Even if the Overlord went to save Yi Qing Luo, Yi Qing Luo was also a corpse. With His Majesty's ability, even if he was alone, he would be able to return safely. Without Yi Qing Luo, the Overlord would belong to her. He absolutely could not allow any reinforcements to enter. He must let Yi Qing Luo die completely inside. Mu Qilan made up her mind. But he didn't expect it. She described the situation in the mountains as more and more dangerous. These people would only become more and more worried. Without the slightest hesitation, Gue Wu walked into the mountain. Mu Qilan widened her eyes in astonishment, and in the end, she closed them weakly. Why was it different from what he had expected? Knowing that it was dangerous inside, why did they still go in? Could it be that he wasn't afraid of death? Gu Zishi stood by her side as she lifted her legs slightly and gave her a light kick. Chapter 40:17. Inside the mountain. Yi Qing Luo felt her body crashing onto the ground. The vines which wrapped around her had apparently stopped dragging. She had just moved. The vines wrapped around her even tighter, as though they were going to embed into her flesh and devour her. In front of her, she was entangled into a ball of vines. There was no way to see where she was. But, for now, Yi Qing Luo was sure that she was safe. These vines had dragged her here from thousands of miles away. They had no intention to take her life. If these vines were the impostor's ultimate motive, which meant that these vines were arranged by the Nether Palace, the place she was at now, it was related to the Nether Palace. Anything related to the Nether Palace. Her life might not be in danger now. But, after this, she was definitely in danger. Thinking of this, Yi Qing Luo's eyes sunk slightly. Right now, the most important thing was to get rid of these vines which wrapped around her. Otherwise, when danger came, she would be helpless and be trampled on. Las Luo, try to use your mental power to control the glower flame fan. Old Man Sung's voice suddenly rang in her mind. Yi Qing Luo got a shock. Old Man Sung had not made a sound for a long time. Don't be in a daze. These vines have gathered too much death qi. The longer it sticks to your skin, the easier it is to absorb your energy. Old Man Sung reminded her. Now wasn't the time to ask Old Man Sung why he had been silent for such a long time. Yi Qing Luo gathered her concentration and followed Old Man Sung's steps to control the glower flame fan. When the glower flame fan was opened, following the release of Yi Qing Luo's mental power, the bewitching red glow instantly spread across the surroundings. Through the layers of vines, Yi Qing Luo could see the strands of red glow, crisscrossing as it spread out. The vines which wrapped around her became tighter. On her body, streaks of red marks were left. She felt the pain as her brows tightened. She concentrated all her attention on the control of her mental power. But after a moment, Yi Qing Luo's body loosened. The vines which wrapped around her broke apart and fell onto the ground. She swiftly clenched her fists tightly as her profound energy shook. The broken vines hanging on his body were all blown away by the dark force. Yi Qing Luo raised her head and stretched her four limbs which had been entangled for a long time. Amidst the red light that filled the sky, countless vines that had been torn apart were still dancing wildly along with the Xian wave. Yi Qing Luo raised her hand. The devouring flame fan that was floating in the air, like a burning flame, steadily landed on her white fingers. Yiqing Luo gripped the fan handle tightly as her fingertips moved slightly. The devouring flame fan closed. Meanwhile, the bewitching red glow that spread out in all directions and the profound wave that shook the air quietly came to an end. Her spiritual power had risen to another level. Yiqing Luo's lips curled up slightly as she caressed the glower flame fan lightly. The first thing he did after breaking free from the vines was, he surveyed his surroundings. He had to figure out where he was before he could find a way to escape. It was a place that looked like a cave. They were surrounded by uneven stone walls. A long passageway that could fit 3 people abreast was winding and extending. When Yiqing Luo looked over, she could only see a stretch of darkness in the tunnel. However, what caught Yiqing Luo's attention was, in the middle of the cave, there was a stone wall which was seamlessly connected to the cave, which was extremely eye-catching. The stone wall was different from the surrounding uneven stone walls. This stone wall in the middle was flat and smooth without any flaws. It didn't look like an ordinary momentum. Chapter 40:18. It was giving off a faint, fine glimmer. Very faint. If one didn't look carefully, one wouldn't be able to tell that the stone wall was twined with glimmer. This wasn't an ordinary stone wall. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly as her heart grew vigilant. In this kind of place, there was such a strange stone wall. It really made one have to think more. On that stone wall, there's a very strong presence. Old Man Song's tone was also extremely grave. Listening to Old Man Song's words, Yiqing Luo's eyes changed slightly as the vigilance in her eyes deepened. She surveyed the surroundings. She didn't sense any signs of life. Even the broken vines on the ground had disappeared unknowingly. Yiqing Luo's vision finally fell onto the stone wall. Her intuition told her. That stone wall had the answer she wanted. Her eyes slowly narrowed. After pondering for a moment, she lifted her feet and walked towards the direction of the stone wall. Just as she neared the stone wall, Yiqing Luo could vaguely see the numerous messy lines carved on the stone wall. Densely packed, extremely messy lines. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes suddenly trembled. An unknown emotion inexplicably welled up in her heart. Her feet increased her speed as she neared the stone wall. Just a step away from the stone wall, Yiqing Luo stopped. The lines carved on the stone wall were clearly reflected in Yiqing Luo's eyes. The messy lines which she vaguely saw earlier. Actually, it wasn't lines. But it was a carved mural. Every stroke, deep and powerful. What the mural wanted to present was carved vividly. That was a human-shaped mural. Very familiar. So familiar that Yiqing Luo had just seen the mural for the first time. Her mind had already thought of the corresponding mural, if her memory served her right. This mural, when she was in Nirvana Realm, was brought to Nirvana Realm by the people behind the scenes of the Dark Palace. The people behind the scenes of the Dark Palace threw her into the profound Yin Qi to control her. In the sealed palace, she had seen this mural before. Human-shaped mural. Next to it was the outline and shape of the carved accessories. And the complicated totem opposite the human-shaped mural were exactly the same. Yiqing Luo was still very confident in her own memories. Therefore, there was absolutely no such thing as a mistake. Why would the murals of the Divine Emperor appear here? Until now, the Palace of Darkness still hasn't given up on finding the tomb of the Divine Emperor. This time, he had used the vines to bring her to this cave. Or was he trying to find out the whereabouts of the Divine Emperor's tomb from her? Yiqing Luo's brows creased tightly into a bundle. He stared at the stone wall and slowly took 2 steps back. He retreated. Then, a wild and mocking laughter rang out, ha ha ha. Looking at this mural, don't you feel exceptionally familiar? His laughter resounded in the empty cave. Boundless chilly air surged over in an overwhelming manner, stirring up gusts of hurricanes. Yin Qi spread all around, as if darkness had enveloped everything. At the same time he heard the voice. Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk, as her fingertips danced, the bewitching red glow quickly turned into a gust of strong qi, enveloping her within. The profound phoenix ring flickered. The protective cover that was formed was strengthened. She surveyed the surroundings alertly, as she spoke in a deep voice, "Since you're already here, why are you still hiding?" Ha ha ha. That laughter came nearer and nearer. The laughter was sinister, revealing endless ridicule. In Yiqing Luo's vision, a slender figure appeared. Chapter 40:19. But in the blink of an eye. That slender, tall and straight figure was already standing in front of Yiqing Luo. That was a man. A head full of silver hair, a black robe enveloping him. But it was unable to conceal that muscular body of his. That face in close proximity was extraordinarily handsome, revealing a sinister feeling that made one's entire body turn cold. The most horrifying thing was that man's pair of extremely dark pupils. His eyes were twined with strands of black yin qi. It was as if tiny black lines were surging in his pupils. His entire body was emitting a thick vicious aura. The moment her eyes met his, she felt a chill run down her spine. Yiqing Luo felt a chill down her spine. An icy cold feeling spread from the bottom of her feet all the way to the top of her head. "Long time no see, little vessel." The evil man's lips curled as he gave an evil sneer. His cold voice was like the cold water in December, penetrating her heart. No matter how calm Yiqing Luo was, she was unable to conceal her astonishment when she saw the man in front of her. "Are you so surprised to see this, lord?" The evil man's lips curled. The yin qi that came gushing towards her was chilly. It kept stirring up the negative emotions in her heart. This feeling made Yiqing Luo frown as she gathered her mental energy to block off the man's yin qi. The expression on her face also regained its calmness. Not bad. I haven't seen you for a period of time and you've grown quite fast. You've changed a lot." Seeing that his yin qi didn't affect Yiqing Luo at all, the man's eyes flashed past a deep meaning. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips slightly as she took 2 steps back, pulling a distance away from the man. "King of Darkness, why are you here?" "Yes, King of Darkness." The man in front of her. He was the one in Nirvana realm who wanted to make use of the student's soul to unlock the seal when the dark forces covered the entire West continent. King of Darkness. Why would he appear here? She clearly remembered. She had once again sealed the King of Darkness's physical body using his mental energy. Using Old Man Sung's words. That was. King of Darkness had to sleep for at least 1,000 years before he had a chance to unlock the seal. It hadn't even been a year. Not only had King of Darkness unlocked the seal, and he had used his complete form to walk out of the seal. Yes, perfect form. Right now, the King of Darkness wasn't a physical body formed from his mental power. Instead, it was a complete body. "Do you think that you've already killed me the last time?" The King of Darkness laughed coldly. His eyes were filled with killing intent. "What a pity. This king is out again. Are you surprised? Was it an accident?" Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted. "You've collaborated with the Palace of Seclusion." It was not a question, but a statement. In this world, perhaps only the person behind the scenes of the Palace of Darkness had the ability to rescue the King of Darkness from the seal. The dark forces from before had all submitted to the Palace of Darkness. It was only natural for the King of Darkness to cooperate with the Nether Palace. The King of Darkness laughed sinisterly as the mysterious yin energy that enveloped the area grew denser and denser. Strand after strand of it started to seep out. He had to admit it. The current King of Darkness was completely different from the King of Darkness he had met in the Nirvana realm. The current King of Darkness, it was like a walking mysterious yin qi. Chapter 40:20. Secluded Palace specially sent the King of Darkness to deal with her. Apparently, they were well prepared. Secluded Palace really didn't leave any leeway to deal with her. She wondered if she should feel proud. She was just an ordinary person, and the mastermind of Secluded Palace actually schemed against her at this critical juncture. Even specially saved the King of Darkness. This was enough to prove. A long time ago, the King of Darkness had already noticed everything about her. He even knew about the hatred between her and the King of Darkness. Once, she had used his mental energy to congeal the physical body and sent it into the seal. Now, how would the King of Darkness let her off so easily? Las Luo, this is bad. Old Man Song had not expected the King of Darkness to appear here. It was obvious that the King of Darkness was here to seek revenge. If the King of Darkness in front of her was still the mental body she had met in Nirvana Realm. Based on Yiqing Luo's current ability to deal with him, Old Man Song was totally not worried about Yiqing Luo. But the King of Darkness in front of him was his complete form. He had the power of the King of Darkness at his peak. No matter how fast Yiqing Luo's improvement was, she was still helpless against the King of Darkness at his peak. After all, the King of Darkness was someone who caused a headache in ancient times. Back then, it was the God Emperor who had spent a lot of effort to seal the King of Darkness. An opponent which required the God Emperor to seal personally. It showed how powerful the King of Darkness was at his peak. How could Yiqing Luo be King of Darkness's opponent? Unless the Overlord could rush over. But, nearby, Old Man Song probed the surroundings anxiously. Since the Secluded Palace is fully prepared and specially made the King of Darkness to block me here, naturally they have sealed off all the aura in this cave. Yiqing Luo naturally heard Old Man Song's thoughts as she subconsciously replied, I've ruined the Secluded Palace's plans, so naturally they can't wait to teach me a lesson. As for the King of Darkness, he was someone whom I had sealed personally. How could his pride allow me to exist? In this cave, she would most likely perish. The other party would not give her any chance to escape. Ha ha ha. The King of Darkness spread open his arms and laughed heartily. Little vessel, obediently become this king's vessel. The more you resist, the more pain you will feel. As the King of Darkness's voice faded, Luo Yunyang's eyes widened. Endless mysterious yin qi covered the entire cave. Boom! The deafening explosion caused the cave to shake violently. Profound yin qi, in a split second, was like a heavenly maiden scattering flowers, entangling towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered as her expression congealed. She quickly retreated. He gathered his dark force into the ghastly flame fan and moved his 5 fingers. The glowing flame fan drew a blazing arc in the air, and quickly cleaved the oncoming mysterious yin qi. The two forces collided in midair. After the collision of energy, the sound of thunder and lightning could be heard. The cave shook even more violently. Pieces of rubble fell. The berserk energy, wave after wave, shook the surroundings. Sand and gravel flew everywhere. It was clear that the King of Darkness wasn't serious. It was just a simple test. Probing Yiqing Luo's current strength. To what extent had it reached? The hurricane surged down. The King of Darkness's lips curled upwards as he waved his sleeves. Profound yin qi vibrated. Palm wind and profound yin qi intertwined. Chapter 40-21. At this moment, Yiqing Luo could clearly feel the disparity between her and King of Darkness. The minute King of Darkness got serious, she was afraid. She couldn't even take one move. This was the King of Darkness at his peak. Yiqing Luo's eyes shot out a ray of fiery brilliance. Her profound energy shook violently. Thick profound energy burst forth. The stronger the opponent was, the more it aroused the battle intent in her. Boom! The explosion caused by the collision of chi waves caused the two of them to take a step back. The profound energy that collided with each other also disintegrated. Yiqing Luo staggered as her fingers which were holding the glower flame fan turned numb. She retracted her hand and looked at her own hand. There was no injury. She squinted her eyes as she looked at King of Darkness. King of Darkness didn't even move his body. He used that pair of extremely cold eyes as he stared deeply at Yiqing Luo. That handsome face was filled with a sinister smile. The little container's resistance really makes me excited. King of Darkness licked his lips as his eyes were filled with a chilly intent. As expected, he was trying to test her strength. Yiqing Luo clenched her fists tightly. King of Darkness glanced at the young lady's tightly clenched hands as the smile on his lips became even colder, revealing a hint of bloodthirstiness. Following that, the profound Yin Qi started to surge again. His attacks were getting more and more ferocious. After a few rounds, Yiqing Luo initially resisted, to barely retaliate, and finally, she could only display her footwork and make use of her speed to avoid King of Darkness's attacks. King of Darkness wasn't in a hurry to kill her. He allowed Yiqing Luo to run all over the place. But as time went on, Yiqing Luo could only hide and not attack, falling into a passive situation. She would be injured if she lost focus. Old Man Sung was so anxious that he wanted to rush out from the Azure Dew bracelet. But he was afraid that he would disturb Yiqing Luo. As time went on, the entire cave was covered with small pieces of broken rocks. Yiqing Luo was in a sorry state. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned sharp. After avoiding King of Darkness's attack, Yiqing Luo's feet suddenly moved. His body suddenly faced the mysterious Yin Qi that was coming at him and charged forward. This sudden action caused the King of Darkness to be startled. In the blink of an eye, Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes, her pink lips moved slightly as she spat out a soft voice, teleportation secret art. In the blink of an eye, Yiqing Luo's figure disappeared into that profound Yin Qi which seemed as though it was going to swallow her whole. He blinked again. She appeared on the body of the King of Darkness. His palm fell and gathered a majestic and thick dark force. The King of Darkness had already regained his senses the moment Yiqing Luo disappeared. He sensed the change in the aura around him. The King of Darkness's lips curled into a sinister smile as he acted as though he didn't notice the commotion behind him. And just at the instant when Yiqing Luo's palm wind fell, the King of Darkness turned around. The surging profound Yin Qi was like a raging wave, instantly engulfing Yiqing Luo. The smile on the King of Darkness's face deepened. "Little vessel, do you think you can trick me with such insignificant skills?" He laughed coldly in disdain. Following that, his arm moved and a burst of profound Yin Qi turned into a slender rope-like thing as it entered the profound Yin Qi. After a few rounds of probing, the King of Darkness's expression changed slightly. Then he waved his sleeves and swiftly dispersed the profound Yin Qi. But there wasn't a single figure in the profound Yin Qi. The King of Darkness's face sunk slightly, and as though he had sensed something, he raised his head and looked ahead. Chapter 40-22. He saw that the girl who should have been swallowed by the mysterious Yin Qi was now holding her shoulder and floating in the air, facing him. The pain in her shoulder made Yiqing Luo frown slightly. Just now, no matter how fast she was, he was also injured by the King of Darkness's remnant might. However, it was not a loss. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled upwards as she shot a glance at the King of Darkness. A glint flashed past her eyes. The King of Darkness kept staring at Yiqing Luo. He didn't notice the change in Yiqing Luo's eyes. However, he did not miss the slight frown on her face due to the pain just now. The King of Darkness stared at her shoulder, and a ruthless glint flashed in his eyes. "Why don't you beg me, little vessel? Maybe I won't kill you then." "Kill me?" Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips tightly as she scoffed softly. Her charming eyes were suffused with a piercingly cold glint. "Are you sure that your master will let you kill me?" "Master?" These two words caused the King of Darkness to frown. The mysterious Yin Qi on his face also became thicker because of his emotions. These two words made him very unhappy. "I have a cooperative relationship with the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. A cooperative relationship was not a master-servant relationship. Yi Qing Luo sneered, "Are you sure? Cooperation?" The gloomy palace had helped the King of Darkness undo the seal that the Divine Emperor had set. It must have taken a lot of effort. It was obvious that the King of Darkness owed the Palace of Darkness the relationship between the two. It did not seem like the kind of relationship between Tenyu Palace and Zhu Wuxin. Moreover, Zhu Wuxin's status was currently equal to that of the gloomy palace. However, the current King of Darkness was different. The dark forces had all submitted to the Palace of Darkness. After tens of thousands of years, the King of Darkness had awakened once more. How could he fight against the Palace of Darkness? So, why would the Palace of Darkness spend so much effort to undo the King of Darkness seal just to let the King of Darkness deal with her? It could be said. The reason why the Netherworld Palace had awakened the King of Darkness was to add a powerful general to their faction, adding on to the hatred between King of Darkness and Yi Qing Luo. The King of Darkness was the best chess piece. He said that Abysmal Palace was his master. There was nothing wrong with those words. From the ridicule in Yi Qing Luo's eyes, the King of Darkness could tell what she was thinking. The self-esteem which was once destroyed by Yi Qing Luo was once again crushed. The King of Darkness's face sank, and the profound yin qi in his body surged like a huge mouth, emitting a surging pressure. Yi Qing Luo's body tensed up, as the protective barrier around her became even more solid. In his heart, he was vigilant and solemn. However, on the surface, he was still as calm as ever. His lips curled into a mocking smile. Is the King of Darkness angry now? The King of Darkness's icy cold eyes locked onto Yi Qing Luo. The profound yin qi in his eyes seemed to be brandishing its fangs and claws at Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo only laughed. He laughed carelessly. The smile pierced the eyes of the King of Darkness. His pride had been pricked. He, the King of Darkness, had once used his mental power to form a physical body, but this little girl had forced him back into the seal. Now, how dare she laugh at him? Did he not put him in his eyes at all? Don't teach her a lesson. Did she really think that he didn't dare to kill her, so she had nothing to fear? The King of Darkness's eyes were shrouded by the profound yin qi. It was extremely dark. It was like a bottomless pool. Chapter 40-23. With the King of Darkness standing on the ground, the mystic yin energy spread out like a spiderweb. It was so dense that not even wind could pass through it. As the mysterious yin qi spread in all directions, it was like cold yin qi had covered the entire cave. In the air, because of this strange power, there was a crackling sound. From time to time, a flash of lightning-like light would flash past. The mysterious yin qi was like a sharp blade, crazily cutting the surroundings. That tyrannical and fierce xian qi, which was close to destroying the heavens and earth, was mighty. The profound phoenix ring on Yi Qing Luo's finger suddenly felt scorching hot. The protective shield formed by the flowing purple light showed signs of cracking. Yi Qing Luo looked down at the profound phoenix ring. She clenched her fair fingers. Little Luo, don't be silly. Old man Song seemed to have seen through Yi Qing Luo's thoughts and immediately stopped her. The opponent is the original body of the King of Darkness. Even though he has just woken up and his strength has yet to return to his peak. Even the current King of Darkness could easily take your life if he wanted to. Old man Song's tone became anxious. The surrounding mysterious yin qi is too dense. Once the profound phoenix ring's protective shield is removed, you will be affected by the mysterious yin qi. Yes. Yi Qing Luo wanted to remove the protective cover on her. The King of Darkness's energy fluctuations were simply too great. If this continued, the profound phoenix ring might break because of this. The profound phoenix ring was the first thing that Dmo Xian had given her. It could be said that it was their token of love. Moreover, the Netherworld Phoenix Ring and Netherworld Dragon Ring were ancient love rings. They had their own consciousness. If the Netherworld Phoenix Ring was broken, what about the Netherworld Dragon Ring? Las Luo. Old man Song's white brows were knitted tightly, his stomach was in a mess as he tried to persuade Yi Qing Luo. However, he swallowed the words that were on the tip of his tongue. In the end, he let out a heavy sigh. Forget it, I don't care anymore. Yi Qing Luo's decision. Very few can change. Furthermore, Old Man Song was very clear about the relationship between Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian. If the profound phoenix ring were to overload and break, Yi Qing Luo felt pained and guilty for a long period of time. After Old Man Song dropped that sentence, he completely disappeared from Yi Qing Luo's consciousness. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips and clenched her fingers even tighter. Old Man Song, I know you care about me. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. His voice faded. Yi Qing Luo's 5 fingers suddenly pressed on the profound phoenix ring. A ray of flowing light faded from Yi Qing Luo's body. What followed was an earth-shattering aura, an aura that was even colder and colder than the sinister aura he had felt before. Yi Qing Luo's face instantly turned pale. His fingers gripping the glowing flame fan tightened. The little container sure has guts. You don't need external protection anymore? Are you planning to die bravely? King of Darkness sensed the change in Yi Qing Luo and his cold eyes lit up. Then, his smile grew colder and colder. Yi Qing Luo didn't reply him. His hands moved quickly. His dark force also poured out. Under the impenetrable mysterious Yin Qi. Streaks of dazzling red light were constantly darting about. King of Darkness's smile deepened as his eyes were filled with bloodthirstiness and the interest of teasing his prey. I really don't want to break your dying dream. Don't you want to know if I dare to kill you? He. I will tell you the answer now. He abruptly flew up. His entire body was filled with malevolent dark force, majestic and vast. Chapter 40-24. Bam! Majestic huge waves crashed against the cave. A burst of profound waves collided. The entire cave shook as gravel flew everywhere. A powerful aura surged. But under the surging profound waves, the gravel broke into pieces. But the cave didn't show any signs of collapsing. The profound waves exploded as the air billowed. King of Darkness's vision swept past the surging air billows as his face sunk. It was this move again. Blink movement's secret art. His eyes were filled with a chilly intent. This king will break your legs, let's see how you're going to hide. Yi Qing Luo was already having a hard time executing the blink movement's secret art. The surrounding profound Yin Qi had spread throughout the entire cave. The aftershocks of the profound waves were rippling outwards one after another. She was affected by it by no means. From King of Darkness's eyes, Yi Qing Luo could see a thick murderous intent. Did he really want to kill her? Was he angry from embarrassment? Yi Qing Luo frowned slightly as her slender fingers gripped the glower flame fan tightly. Although the blink movement's secret art could temporarily avoid King of Darkness's attack. But the amount of mental energy required was not low. Furthermore, don't think that this cave was huge. But if King of Darkness was serious, he could totally cover the entire cave. If she continued to agitate him, there was a possibility that he would really go against the agreement with Secluded Palace and kill her. The murderous intent in King of Darkness's eyes wasn't fake. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes as she took a deep look at King of Darkness. Deep in his heart, he felt a little anxious. It had already reached this stage. Why hadn't it acted up yet? Could it be that her plan had failed? If it really failed, then wouldn't her intentionally agitating King of Darkness be seeking her own death? Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips as her heart trembled slightly. She had to think of a solution as soon as possible. Otherwise the loss of energy would put her in even more danger. Yi Qing Luo stared at King of Darkness's actions vigilantly. She quickly wiped the blood off her body onto the azure aqua ring. Tightly and swiftly, it brushed past the azure aqua chain. The 2 azure aqua divine weapons flashed red. A surge of scorching energy flowed into Yi Qing Luo's body. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. Very quickly, he endured the discomfort of the power assaulting his limbs and bones and spread the power of the divine artifact to his limbs and bones. The bewitching red light enveloped the young girl. It also made the young girl's red dress look even more like a raging flame. When he saw this scene, King of Darkness abruptly stopped his attacks as his eyes lit up. His scorching gaze was fixated on Yi Qing Luo, vast water divine relic. Yes. The presence on Yi Qing Luo's body was the presence of the vast aqua divine armament. And there was more than one. Not only that time. He had intentionally allowed Yi Qing Luo to take away the Azure Water God relic. He was right. Back then when Yi Qing Luo was able to obtain the first Azure Water Divine Relic, Azure Water Ring, it was designed by the King of Darkness. Back then, he had specifically asked the Wolf Saint technique to send the profound Yin Qi into the deep water ring. Once Yi Qing Luo contracted, the profound Yin Qi could control Yi Qing Luo. The conceited and arrogant him did not expect, in the future, he would be defeated by Yi Qing Luo, a young lass whose hair was not even fully grown. Unexpectedly, Yi Qing Luo had not only purified the profound Yin Qi in the Azure Dew Ring. She had even obtained the second Azure Water Divine Relic. The murderous intent in King of Darkness's eyes slowly faded. The gaze which he looked at Yi Qing Luo was extremely greedy. She was the vessel for the divine phoenix profound jade heart. That profound jade heart of hers was the key to finding the divine relic. The Azure Water Divine Relic, he was determined to get it. Chapter 40-25. With the help of the God Relic. Yi Qing Luo's energy suddenly rose sharply. Tyrannical profound energy encircled her entire body as it attacked and circled around her. The dazzling red light formed a murderous arc in the air. Looking at Yi Qing Luo's transformation, the expression on King of Darkness's face was filled with joy and greed. As though Yi Qing Luo's transformation, it already belonged to him. Let this king experience the power of these two God relic. The King of Darkness leaped into the air, and with a wave of his sleeves, the mysterious Yin Qi surged out like a raging wave. This time, King of Darkness's attack wasn't filled with killing intent like before. It was a kind of probing attack. He was probing the power of the God relic. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes. Her narrow eyes were filled with a biting cold glint. The glower flame fan opened up and the raging flame profound energy poured out. Bam bam bam, the raging flame profound energy collided with the profound Yin Qi. A deafening explosion clashed with the tremors in the cave. King of Darkness's eyes shone even brighter. The power of the God relic is indeed not bad. To him, it was merely not bad. What made King of Darkness even more surprised was this small vessel could actually take the power of the God relic as its own. Using the power of the God relic, it wouldn't suffer from the backlash of the God relic. It was indeed a vessel with the divine phoenix profound jade heart. Even the God relic accepted her. If he obtained this small vessel, he would keep it as his own. He could use this small vessel to search for the vast water God relic and obtain it. Why would he bother about the palace lord of the secluded palace? Trying to use the gratitude of unlocking the seal to coerce him to do something? Did he, King of Darkness, look like someone who knew how to repay gratitude? If not for his power after awakening had yet to fully recover, how would he possibly cooperate with the secluded palace? Wouldn't it be better to just kidnap Yi Qing Luo? Really? Something better is at the back. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips rose slightly as her narrow eyes flashed a trace of blood-red glow. She suddenly leaped up. The glower flame fan in her hands was faintly discernible in the illusion. The alluring red glow was like an electric current as it revolved around her body. The dark force released was incomparably vast. The dazzling red light surged out like a tide. Boom! A loud sound rang out. The power that erupted from the red light completely dispersed the profound Yin Qi that filled the sky. The entire cave was filled with large patches of red. Violent and tyrannical Qi waves were constantly surging. The wind swept up the rubble everywhere. The King of Darkness' eyes shone even brighter. His gaze towards Yiqing Luo could be said to be fiery. Swish, the sound of something tearing through the air rang in his ears. The King of Darkness's eyes flashed, and he dodged to the side. The sharp wind blade brushed past him. It was the wind blades of the glowing flame fan. He had just dodged the wind blade. Immediately after, the tyrannical aura that came from all directions instantly entangled him. No matter how fast the King of Darkness reacted, he couldn't do anything. He was also blasted by this tyrannical aura. His body staggered back a few steps from the impact. The immense pressure was squeezing his internal organs. The King of Darkness's pupils dilated slightly as he raised his hand and pressed it on his chest. His eyes were filled with disbelief and a faint excitement. Yes, excitement. Other than the last time when his mental energy congealed into a physical body which was injured by Yiqing Luo. His body, this body. How long had it been since his real body was injured? Chapter 40-26. King of Darkness's chest shook for a moment. Tightly, he let out a sly chuckle. Laughing and laughing. That laughter gradually became louder and louder as he laughed out loud. Small vessel. His sinister voice was like an icy cold poisonous snake as it coiled up. Following that, he moved his hand away from his chest. His figure suddenly flew towards the center of that dazzling red light. His body was encircled by a circle of profound yin qi. Just as he was flying away, along with the profound yin qi, he split open a black blade amidst the dazzling red light. The speed was extremely ferocious. Just a moment later, in the cave, two rays of light, two bursts of energy collided violently with each other. Under the excitement of King of Darkness, his momentum was extremely ferocious. When he made his move, as compared to probing, it was filled with more viciousness. After Yiqing Luo released the God Relic's energy, her body had a moment of weakness. Suddenly she saw King of Darkness flying over. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she felt the sinister cold wind rushing towards her. The majestic force seemed as though it was going to crush her. She took a deep breath and speedily moved her body. Right before King of Darkness charged over. Her body used an extremely difficult posture as she flipped and stepped onto the side of the stone wall which was constantly shaking and breaking. She suddenly dashed into the stone wall in the middle of the cave. The few movements seemed to be as smooth as flowing water, but it had already made Yiqing Luo's face turn paler. She leaned against the stone wall which was engraved with exquisite murals as she raised her head to look at King of Darkness who had missed the injury on her shoulder, as well as the small injuries from the few times she crossed hands with King of Darkness, adding on to the depletion of her mental power. She was afraid that she wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Even though her body had been modified and was no longer a mortal body. But she was still human and would feel tired or exhausted. Now, she could only hope that her method would be effective on King of Darkness. Although she was certain that King of Darkness would not kill her. But once she fell into the hands of the secluded palace, she had no way of predicting the consequences. Even if she had something that the secluded palace, or rather, the entire upper realm's upper echelons wanted. How many times had she ruined the secluded palace's plans? The Netherworld Palace would not take her life so easily. But it would definitely make her feel worse than before. And the King of Darkness, Yiqing Luo, didn't feel that the King of Darkness could be compared to the person behind the scenes in the Nether Palace. Even if the King of Darkness had his own plans in mind, Lin Yun wouldn't be able to do so. However, none of this could escape the schemes of the people behind the Dark Palace. TSK. Is your body overloaded? The King of Darkness stared unblinkingly at Yiqing Luo's pale face as he laughed coldly. The power of a god relic is too heavy for a mortal like you. As soon as he finished speaking, Yiqing Luo only felt her cheeks turning cold. The King of Darkness blinked and stood in front of her. The distance was very close. It was so close that Yi Qing Luo's fine black hair was blown by the strong wind, causing it to dance wildly. So close that the gloomy cold chi emitted from his body was so dense that it almost covered Yi Qing Luo's body. Yi Qing Luo raised her head and met with the King of Darkness's dark and icy cold eyes. Wisps of mysterious yin chi circulated in his pupils. It looked extremely horrifying. At this distance, it made Yi Qing Luo's entire pupils were filled with the King of Darkness's icy cold face and smooth and exquisite skin. She frowned as she couldn't stand to be in close contact with any man other than Dmo Xian. Chapter 40-27. Yi Qing Luo's actions pleased the King of Darkness. His dark eyes overflowed with a mocking and evil smile. As though he was laughing. Or as though he was ridiculing her. His body intentionally moved closer to Yi Qing Luo. That posture seemed as though he was intentionally teasing Yi Qing Luo, to make him happy. Yi Qing Luo's brows creased even tighter. Just as the icy cold aura was about to envelop her. She stretched out her hand and blocked in front of the King of Darkness's chest. Her palm had just touched the King of Darkness. Yi Qing Luo felt a burst of extreme coldness, as it invaded her. That was a bone-piercing chill. Her hands subconsciously shrank back. The King of Darkness stopped his body from pressing down because of Yi Qing Luo's touch. When he saw the young lady's shrinking hand, his eyes flashed with an unknown emotion. Immediately, his body continued to move closer to the young lady. Yi Qing Luo's back was pressed against the stone wall. The King of Darkness trapped her tightly in his space. The moment she moved, the King of Darkness's arm followed closely. As for his icy cold body, it was gradually sticking to Yi Qing Luo's delicate body. At the last moment, when the coldness was about to seep into her skin, Yi Qing Luo had no way to avoid it. She could only raise her hand and block in front of the King of Darkness's chest, preventing him from getting closer. An extremely cold profound yin chi filled her palm. Yi Qing Luo's profound energy gathered on her palms, blocking the profound yin chi from entering her body. She raised her head and met the King of Darkness's mocking gaze as she gritted her teeth. King of Darkness, your actions, can I interpret it as? You are trying to seduce me? Seduce? The King of Darkness's lips curled, not understanding the meaning of the word. Yi Qing Luo replied, it means, you like me and want to woo me. The King of Darkness's dark eyes seemed to have a black light flowing. Following that, an exaggerated evil smile surfaced on his face. He laughed out loudly. The gaze he used to look at Yi Qing Luo was as though he was looking at a joke. This king likes you? Want to woo you? Ha ha ha, what do you think? On what basis can you enter this king's eyes? His tone was filled with ridicule. But his body didn't have any intention to move away. Yi Qing Luo didn't blush from his ridicule. She would only blush in front of Dmo Xian. Her face was expressionless as she said word by word, oh? Since you're not trying to seduce me, then, what are you doing now? She deliberately lowered her eyes and glanced at his body that was so close to hers. If it wasn't for her hand blocking the distance between the two of them, he was afraid that he would directly press down on her. King of Darkness followed Yi Qing Luo's gaze and looked at the distance between them. Just as Yi Qing Luo thought that the King of Darkness would fly into a rage out of humiliation and swiftly distance himself from her. The King of Darkness chuckled softly. Suddenly, he raised his hand and covered Yi Qing Luo's hand, which was pressed against King of Darkness's chest. The icy cold touch made Yi Qing Luo shiver. The touch from a stranger of the opposite sex made Yi Qing Luo's face reveal an expression of resistance. She tried to break free from the King of Darkness's grip. A low and sinister voice fell beside her ear, like a bolt from the blue, striking her on the inside and tender on the outside. Oh, then. This king is indeed flirting with you. Yi Qing Luo. Flirting? Your grandpa's flirting. King of Darkness, your persona has collapsed, all right? Ugly reject, ugly reject. Chapter 40-28. Ha. Ha 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 ha. King of Darkness's laughter rang beside her ear. Carefree and unrestrained, laughing maniacally. He let go of Yi Qing Luo's hand as he retreated slightly. Yi Qing Luo immediately dodged to the other side. King of Darkness hadn't laughed so heartily for a long time. This was the first time he laughed so carefree since he was sealed. Look at your expression, ha ha ha. You really treated my words seriously? King of Darkness ridiculed, who do you think you are? How could I possibly like you? Ha ha ha. Yi Qing Luo. Crazy snake. It was best if he didn't like her. Otherwise, if she was liked by a crazy snake, that would be a huge problem. Yi Qing Luo carefully stuck close to the stone wall as she circled to the other side of the stone wall, widening the distance between her and King of Darkness. Because of the King of Darkness's sudden action and his reply, the King of Darkness's eyes widened. The murderous atmosphere between the both of them had been alleviated. But Yi Qing Luo was still on her guard. After all, she was facing a crazy snake. Who knows, he might be laughing and joking with you. The next second, he might be choking on your neck, trying to kill you. Her little actions didn't escape King of Darkness's eyes. When he saw Yi Qing Luo's figure was about to reach the other side of the stone wall, the corners of his mouth twitched coldly, and he suddenly took 2 large steps forward. He stretched out his hand and grabbed her hand, which was stuck on the stone wall. The man's icy cold fingers locked onto the young lady's arm. The force was extremely strong, and the icy coldness along with the profound yin qi kept eroding her. Yi Qing Luo was about to pull her hand away. Her arm tightened and her body suddenly pulled. Her entire body was forcefully pulled and fiercely crashed into the man's embrace. As though she had crashed into an ice cube in an ice house. The coldness entered her body. It was so cold that Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but shiver. What are you doing? Ah. Yi Qing Luo's face was hurting from the impact as she raised her head and reprimanded King of Darkness with an ugly expression. Before she could finish her words, the hand which was locked onto her arm suddenly exerted more force. That force was so strong that she cried out in pain. She had just raised her head. The man in front of her suddenly staggered a step backwards. His hand still gripped her arm tightly. His other hand moved away from her waist and slowly pressed on her chest. His face alternated between green and white, looking extremely strange. Yi Qing Luo wanted to withdraw her hand. However, the King of Darkness tightened her grip. It was so tight that a few wrinkles appeared between her brows. What trick was this lunatic trying to pull? Yi Qing Luo's pink lips pursed tightly as her half-squinted eyes refracted a cold glint, meeting his gaze. But, she only saw the man's dark eyes slowly widen. There was a look of disbelief in his eyes. It's you. The man opened his thin lips slightly and spat out a word. Then, with a wah sound, a large mouthful of black blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth. Yes, black blood. It was not the mysterious yin qi that made it look like black blood. And it was indeed true, he spat out black blood. The black, sticky blood dripped onto his robe. The King of Darkness's body started to stagger, as though it was difficult for him to even stand properly. Yi Qing Luo's gaze landed on the sticky liquid beside the King of Darkness's mouth. Her eyes suddenly lit up. It was, the poison which she had given to the King of Darkness had taken effect. That's right. Poison. This was the first time she had used her teleportation secret art. She had intentionally made a fake movement to make the King of Darkness's eyes to mislead him into thinking that she was trying to sneak an attack on him. Chapter 40-29. That poison was called Profound Pill. It was an upgraded version that she and Ghost Doctor had developed through the Profound Medicine Soup. The effect of the Profound Medicine Soup was targeted at cultivators. Once the soup entered the stomach, it would dissolve the cultivator's profound qi within 4 hours, rendering him unable to use his profound energy. And the Profound Pill was the upgraded version of the Profound Medicine Soup. Once it was swallowed, it would instantly dissolve the profound qi in the cultivator's body. Especially, the more the cultivator wanted to use his profound energy, the greater the reaction and the deeper the rebound would be. It was impossible for the King of Darkness to swallow the profound pill. So Yiqing Luo made use of the first time she executed her teleportation secret art, which was when her shoulder was injured by the King of Darkness's aftershock. She took the opportunity to crush the profound pill, using the powder of the profound pill through her profound energy. This allowed the King of Darkness to inhale the Nanxian pill's powder into his body. This was the reason why Yiqing Luo kept provoking the King of Darkness, infuriating him to make a move against her. After all, the King of Darkness wasn't poisoned by the normal method of swallowing the profound pill. After probing it again and again, Yiqing Luo thought that the profound pill had no effect on the King of Darkness and her plan was going to fail. She had not expected. The profound pill was a success. Yiqing Luo swiftly grabbed the King of Darkness's hand and pulled his hand away from hers. Yiqing Luo, don't even think of escaping. The King of Darkness, who was spitting out a mouthful of black blood, stared at her coldly. Even though his body was in immense pain, the strength in his hand was shockingly huge. Furthermore, he bore with the pain as he released his majestic profound energy, and the hand which was pressing on his chest suddenly slammed down towards Yiqing Luo's chest. When his palm slammed down, Yi Shiwen's eyes widened. The black blood in his mouth started to spurt out even more violently. Even his eyes, nose, and ears were oozing out a large amount of sticky liquid. The poison that the King of Darkness was inflicted with was the profound pill. The more he used his profound energy, the stronger the profound qi undulations. He would be in even more pain. Or worse, it would cause a backlash from his body. But the King of Darkness didn't care. He only knew his pain. This young lady in front of him who poisoned him must repay him 100 times. When the King of Darkness's palm landed, the King of Darkness's eyes widened. Yiqing Luo was actually on her guard. However, vigilance was useless. The King of Darkness was determined to make her suffer as well. This palm strike had practically exhausted all of the King of Darkness' remaining strength. Furthermore, the King of Darkness's hand was tightly gripping her arm. There was no way he could dodge the King of Darkness' palm. Yiqing Luo could only turn sideways to avoid the vital parts. The remaining power of the palm wind surged in all directions. Yiqing Luo's evasion was also extremely close to the palm wind. The aftershock vibrated and struck Yiqing Luo's body. She gave a muffled grunt. Her delicate back slammed heavily against the stone wall. The intricately carved mural lines were branded on her back. It hurt a little. It was also a little hot and scalding. Wait a minute. Boiling hot? How could this stone wall be boiling hot? This thought flashed across his mind. By the side of her ear, King of Darkness's astonished bellow rang, Yiqing Luo. Then, her body suddenly felt light. It was as if the stone wall behind her had suddenly disappeared, and she fell backwards. Then, it continued to fall, falling, her body seemed to be floating in the air, and she continued to fall. Chapter 40-30. The King of Darkness looked at his empty hand in disbelief. He suppressed the pain in his body and the feeling of weakness. Following that, his vision fell onto the stone wall which was engraved with exquisite murals. What happened just now? He was obviously grabbing onto Yiqing Luo. But at the next moment, the stone wall suddenly emitted a ray of light. In the middle of the stone wall, a huge light hole appeared out of nowhere. Yiqing Luo fell into the light hole right in front of his eyes. He wanted to chase after her. But the moment he touched the light hole, what he touched was a solid stone wall. That ray of light also dissipated. Everything in front of him returned to normal. Only Yiqing Luo's disappearance proved that everything earlier wasn't an illusion. What was this? King of Darkness's face darkened as he raised his hand and pressed it against the stone wall. He felt around. But he didn't discover anything strange on the stone wall. He couldn't find the reason why the light hole appeared and why Yiqing Luo disappeared. And at this moment, Yiqing Luo, who had lost all support, was still falling. Her ears were filled with the howling of the wind. Her falling speed was extremely fast. It was so fast that the surrounding scenery disappeared in a flash. Yiqing Luo couldn't see her surroundings clearly. She could only confirm this was still a cave, because she could faintly see the uneven stone wall. And the sky was filled with red light. Just at this moment, her falling body suddenly lightened. Instantly she turned into a feather, floating lightly. His body, which had been lying in midair, slowly stood up. Then, his body, which was as graceful as a feather, slowly and steadily landed on the ground. Just like the moment when she was falling. There was a mysterious force that eased the resistance of her fall and allowed her to stand on the ground unscathed. This situation. It was similar to the last time when Chu Wu Xian poisoned her and made her unconscious for 2 days. This feeling of falling into the abyss without any support was really uncomfortable. Last time, she was in a daze and knew that she was in a coma. The fall of her soul. But this time, it was totally different. This time it wasn't unconscious, nor was it an illusion. She had really fallen from the sky and landed in this unknown place. Yiqing Luo suppressed the shock and disbelief in her heart as her eyes speedily surveyed the surroundings. He had to first confirm what this place was. Also, that mysterious power just now, was it friend or foe? But when Yiqing Luo's vision surveyed the surroundings, she was completely dumbfounded. The surroundings were filled with a thin mist. This fog was not the usual white fog. Instead, it was a faint red mist. It was as if there was a faint flame burning in the surroundings. Her charming eyes were coated with a faint layer of red light. This strange mist made Yiqing Luo hold her breath in vigilance. He couldn't be sure of the safety of the mist. Yiqing Luo surveyed her surroundings. He didn't discover any other living beings or auras in the surroundings. In the end, she focused her attention on the mist. Girl, this isn't mist. In her mind, Old Man Song's slightly excited voice suddenly came. This is azure water true qi. It's very useful to you. Azure water true qi? This was the first time Yiqing Luo heard of this term. Old Man Song's body sprang out from the azure dew bracelet. Chapter 40-31. He circled around Yiqing Luo's head several times. It could be seen that Old Man Song was really excited. He looked ahead without blinking at the red mist in the sky and explained, Vast aqua true qi is different from the usual heaven and earth qi. This kind of true qi is purer than heaven and earth qi, and is more suitable for a physique like yours. Old Man Song stretched out his hands. The faint red mist that filled the sky circled around him and seeped into his body. The light red light intersected with Old Man Song's white velvet light. It made his whole body seem to be covered with a layer of holy light. Seeing Old Man Song's action, Yiqing Luo also slowly stretched out a hand and tried to summon the red mist. Just as she moved her hand, she felt a chill run down her spine. The mist floating in the air surged up. Due to the movement of the mist, the air seemed to have become somewhat viscous. However, when the faint red mist entered his body, she only felt that her whole body was like it was washed, relaxed and without the slightest tiredness. A trace of shock emerged in her eyes. Vast aqua true qi is very difficult to form, I didn't expect. There is such a big treasure land here that nurtures vast aqua true qi. Old Man Song looked towards Yiqing Luo and explained to the young girl. Yiqing Luo, what are the conditions to form vast aqua true qi? First, it needs the divine power of the vast aqua divine weapon, plus a drop of blood of the Emperor of God as a medium. Then with the spirit gathering array, it needs to be nurtured for hundreds of years, even thousands of years. There is a 50% chance of forming true qi. Vast aqua divine weapon? The blood of the Emperor of God? These two sentences made Yi Qing Luo's eyes suddenly brighten. If she remembered correctly, she seemed to have crashed into the exquisite mural that was carved with the Emperor of God and the vast aqua divine weapon. Then, she lost her support and fell straight down. And the direction of her fall seemed to be that stone wall. In other words, she fell into that stone wall. This huge place filled with vast aqua true chi was the inside of the stone wall. This guess made Yi Qing Luo's heart palpitate even faster. If her guesses were all right, in other words, the mural on the stone wall of the cave was really related to the divine emperor. It was not the same stone wall as the one he saw when he was trapped in the headquarters of the Dark Palace in the Nirvana realm by the person behind the scenes of the Dark Palace. The stone wall in Tenyu Palace was fake. And this piece was real, but why was she able to enter the stone wall that was carved with the divine emperor's monarch? Logically speaking, if the carvings of the divine emperor and the vast water divine weapon were real, then there would definitely be a protective barrier set up. She fell into the stone wall. Where was the King of Darkness? He, who was already poisoned, also followed them in. But in this space, Yi Qing Luo didn't sense anyone else's presence other than her. Lass Luo, calm your heart and absorb the azure aqua chi. This is something that can only be encountered by chance and not sought. Old man Song saw that Yi Qing Luo was standing there in a daze, so he opened his mouth to urge her. Yi Qing Luo returned to her senses and looked at old man Song. The faint red mist was getting thicker and thicker. Everything in front of him seemed to be covered with a faint layer of red. In her eyes, there was a faint red light flickering. She slowly stretched out both her hands again, accepting the surrounding azure aqua chi. Chapter 40-32. As Yi Qing Luo accepted the azure aqua true chi into her body, she asked old man Song, just now you said, the conditions to form the azure aqua true chi, one is the azure aqua artifact, and the second is a drop of blood from the Emperor of God, right? Old man Song, yes. Yi Qing Luo, that is to say, this place has a third azure water god relic? Old man Song was silent for a long time. Then, as if he suddenly reacted, he abruptly withdrew his hand and slapped his leg. That's right, why didn't this old man think of this? There's an azure water divine artifact here. A place that could form azure water true chi was bound to have an azure water divine artifact. In the Nirvana realm, Yi Qing Luo had obtained the azure aqua ring and azure aqua silk chain, these two divine weapons. After that, they didn't sense the presence of the vast water divine artifact anywhere else. Unexpectedly, the third vast water divine artifact was actually in the earth domain. After exchanging blows with the King of Darkness, the King of Darkness wasn't the only one who was poisoned. It had even fallen into the array formation that had formed the azure water true chi, and there was also the whereabouts of the third azure water divine tool. His luck was unparalleled. Thinking about the existence of the azure water divine artifact, Yi Qing Luo immediately stood up. She scanned her surroundings. The misty light red color shrouded everything in the distance. This place looks like a piece of flat land within 100 miles. She lowered her eyes, her slender fingers stroking the azure water ring. These two divine artifacts didn't produce any reaction. The azure water divine artifact was a set type. Generally speaking, as long as the vast water divine weapon got close, it wouldn't be able to escape. There will be a reaction. However, in this space that was neither too big nor too small, Yi Qing Luo had not sensed anything at all. Because of this, she waited for old man Song to explain the conditions for the formation of azure true chi before she realized that there might be a divine artifact here. Old man Song also floated up and circled around Yi Qing Luo. Look around, there might be other passages. The man and the spirit body chose a random direction and walked forward. As they walked, one man and one spirit body absorbed the surrounding azure water true chi. Yi Qing Luo's injuries from the battle with the King of Darkness had gradually healed after the cleansing of her chi. They walked for about a quarter of an hour. There was no path ahead. In front of him was an uneven rock wall. She reached out and touched it. he didn't notice anything strange. Furthermore, the two divine artifacts in his hands did not react at all. Yiqing Luo led Old Man Sung around the rock wall and walked one round around the entire space. There were no secret passages on the rock walls, nor any other passageways. Moreover, the divine artifact did not react at all. Yiqing Luo stopped and sat on the ground to rest. Could it be that there are no divine weapons here? Last time, the azure water ring had sensed the azure water chain. Even though he was far away, he could already sense it. If this space really had a vast water artifact, why didn't the two divine artifacts in his hands react at all? Where there's azure water true energy, there's definitely an azure water divine weapon. Old Man Sung solemnly shook his head, his face also filled with confusion. To be able to form such pure and dense azure water true chi, it's impossible to not have the support of an azure water divine tool. The most important aspect of forming an azure water divine tool is that there must be an azure water divine tool. The vast water divine weapon, the blood of the divine sovereign, the spirit gathering formation. These 3 points were the prerequisites for forming azure water true chi. No matter which one was missing, it was impossible to form azure water true chi. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.